Thanks for coming to the seminar on conquering procrastination. And it's not a master class on how to do procrastination. So we have together today Pedro, Ribeiro, Glyn, Faulkner, and Millard, who is just arrived. Just in time. So we choose today to have three speakers to share their experience on how they have suffered in cause by procrastination during their PhD studies, what techniques, tools, or methods they use in order to overcome their procrastination and get their work done, and how they split a major task in smaller tasks in order to make some progress. So let's listen to what they have to say. Pedro.
Okay. Right. So thank you for coming. So I'm going to talk a bit about maybe not necessarily procrastinating or not how to procrastinate, but what sort of things I do and how does that affect the need to procrastinate and how to avoid that in some sense. So I'll start with this slide. Can you do it? So how many of you have achieved that? How do I do it bit today? A few nods, okay.
I'm scaled to I want to do it.
Right. I want to do it. So eventually you want to get to the stage where you say you can do it, and that you will do it, and that you actually did it. How do you get there? So this is a task-oriented view of the problem. So what is the task you have at hand like? Is it a big task? Is it a small task? What sort of implications does this task have? Is it well defined? Do you know when it starts? Do you know when it ends? Do you know what the resources you need to tackle this task? Do you have those resources available? Do you need other people to work with you? Or are you depending on other people's resources and so on? Does it have a deadline? Do you need to schedule things around and make sure you hit the deadline? Are you going to delay that until the very last minute, or are you going to break that down before and try and get chunks of work done before? Can we use divide and conquer? So can we split very, very big task to smaller things? And does that help us in any way? And I think one of the things I really like to consider is how do you measure progress? So how do you know that you halfway through your task and you're almost there, rather than, well, yeah, I'm not really sure, but I think it's almost done, and then you suddenly hit a very hard problem and you're stuck because there's not much you can do about it at that point, and there's not much time left and you're stressed out and so on. So is there anything that we can do to help us with that? So here's the sort of thing I do. I work with problems with equalities, and I try to prove that that's true, or that that's not true, okay? It doesn't really matter what it is for this talk. I work with angelic non-determinism, so if I could be an angel and make all the right choices and all the right decisions at every point during my proofs, then wow, that'll be awesome. I can't do that. So normally that's how I see it. I see this problem as a jigsaw puzzle, really. So I've got something I want to prove. I know more or less what's the general shape of it, but I don't have the pieces. I don't know how the pieces look like, and I have to break it down into as many pieces as I need. So really this is attempting to solve jigsaw puzzles which no pieces are yet available. And that's how I roughly define proving things. And that's the sort of work I do. So how does that relate to this picture? Oh, I won't do it is really not an option. I can't do it sometimes. I don't think so I can do it. Eventually, I really want to do it. I want to prove it or disprove it. Quite often, I don't know how to do it, and this is where procrastination kind of kicks in that I don't really know how to do that. It seems hard, so I go and do something else. And later I come around back to it, well, I still don't know how to do it. Eventually I have a go at doing it, but still doesn't seem quite easy. Well, eventually there's something, I look at the puzzle and I see, well, no, I only need only these few pieces are left. So I think I can do it now. I just need a bit more time, a few more pieces, and eventually I'll do it. This might take a long time, so it might be, rather than a week, it might be 2 weeks. So some properties that are proved, well, they're trivial, or they are very easy, so they take 1 or 2 weeks. Other stuff might take months sometimes. And you all know that to some extent. So, planning. I think planning is important in any sort of tasks you do. And in some sense, that allows you to see the structure of the task and also how big or how small and maybe the dependencies of it. You can go full scale with the Gantt chart, like I did for my thesis, and it helped me structure a bit of my work and to know more or less whether I was on time or not. But it wasn't really helpful in that, all those details in the beginning, I didn't really know much about them. So I'm not sure that's really, really helpful. So what I think is helpful is to think about the tasks and think, well, do I have a rough estimate of how long that's going to take me, or how much effort am I going to need to do it? And if not, and quite often when I'm doing proofs, I don't really know that at the starting point. So I'll try and focus what's the hardest bit, what looks more complicated, and see, well, is this going to take me a day? Is this going to take me 5 days or a week? And that kind of helps me assess mentally, am I making progress on this? So if after a couple of days I still haven't solved it, well, it's okay, calm down. I said it was likely to take a week, maybe double that. So we're still doing okay, even if I procrastinate during that time. I know I'm still okay with that. So my suggestion here really is to tackle the hardest and the higher priority tasks first. You probably do that, and that's probably a good thing to do. But of course, you'll have distractions coming around while you're doing these things, while you're executing these tasks. So I think quite a few people like to go offline sometimes, even if not for a few hours or a few days or weeks. You shut your Facebook account or something of that sort. And I think this helps a bit in this notification-centric world where all pieces of information are being sent off to you, and that's often not very helpful because you get distracted. You receive this email, you receive this piece of information, and you need to deal with it at least for a few seconds and minutes, and your brain's taken away. Regular breaks, I think that really helps a lot. Not only because you need to do other things like eat, sleeping, and so on, but also because it gives you new insights into your problem. You come with a fresh mind. So I don't think so it's necessarily wrong to go and have a break, go and do something else, which might include going online and doing all sorts of things. At least your mind is off that particular task for a while. Distracting tasks but with a schedule. So I actually read a lot of stuff like news and so on, and quite often I like to read that regularly. So I normally tend to do this kind of stuff in the morning. So when I come to the department, I've already done all that kind of stuff, and I know, okay, now I can get on with work. Or multitasking. So if I have multiple tasks, academic and non-academic, or organizing events and so on, well, how do we deal with that? Quite often it's a bit tricky, because if you really allow this kind of multitasking to be happening all the time, again, you have all these distractions going on. You're switching in between all these tasks. So maybe a better approach is to say, well, for this particular amount of time, 1 hour, 2 hours, or whatever it is, you'll focus on a particular task, and then once that's done, and you've got rid of that, then you move on to something else. And that helps kind of establish what's the deadline for you in the near term. And you probably have other techniques and so forth which probably work better for you than for me. But this is the general theme of how I normally go about doing my work, and making sure that the distractions that get thrown at me are not really distracting from doing my tasks. But I think more importantly is, how do I make sure that I'm making progress? So how do I bring that confidence? I say, well, I'm making progress with this particular proof or this particular task. So I like to keep all my work in the Git repository. So this is a pictorial view of the repository with thesis work here, technical reports, and so on. And I think it's important to have some kind of metric which is useful for you. So maybe not the structure of the repository, but maybe things like units and relations. So the number of proofs I've done or the number of theorems I've proved in their dependencies. So if something is wrong, I could potentially say, oh, okay, I only need to fix this and this and that. And I know that's manageable. There's only so many things I need to do. And so I'll have a structured approach at tackling that particular problem. Or the number of commits. You know, I'll make sure at least I have a successful and significant commit each day. So I know that I've done my bit of work for that particular day. And I like to set a goal that today I'm going to do this, tomorrow I'm going to do this, and something that is achievable, that you know is achievable. And that really will help you, because once you see, oh, I still haven't done that today, I still need to do that. And so your focus will be back in the task. Other things like lines of code or words. So setting a goal like when writing the thesis, like 1,000 words per day, say. Even if you don't hit that every single day, but if you make an effort to hit that with good content, not just writing, but good content, even if it's 800 words or so. And I think that really helped me to complete certain tasks, thesis writing and so on. So I can measure that. I can ask the tool and say, how many lines have I written today? And it will tell me, and I can have a happy face, even if I go on and do other tasks, other things which are unrelated. I know I've made progress. And so I don't need to stress about that particular point, or chapters or sections if you're writing a paper and so on. That could also be a useful metric. But I'm sure there's plenty of others which are more meaningful to you. And, yes, I did it. I did this presentation. I prepared it. I did yesterday. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so I think you'll notice my title is slightly less optimistic than conquering procrastination, because I certainly haven't conquered it. But I have found some strategies that work for me, at least, for trying to deal with it. So yeah, I think I kind of spoiled my kind of little joke there at the beginning, for which I have to thank Ruby. So anyway, yeah. So basically, 4 parts. First of all, make your life easier. Make it as easy as possible to actually do work. The more barriers you have in the way, the less likely you are to actually start. Then I'll have a quick look at some reasons why all these fantastic productivity systems fail, which they do repeatedly. And then I'll give you some brain hacks that, through the process I mentioned before of just trying different things, that I'm not immune to, that have worked for me reliably. Maybe they'll work for you, maybe they won't. And then some links to web resources on kind of productivity systems, and to-do list management. So, how to make working easier? Firstly, we're computer scientists, but our brains still need oxygen and nutrients. If you're not eating well, if your heart rate never gets above resting, your concentration span is going to be way down. It's going to be that much harder to actually kind of get on and work, to do productive things. Now, I'm lazy, I don't exercise much, but I try and walk places instead of getting the bus. I cycle. Just enough to kind of get the blood pumping at least once a day. I find personally that helps. Keep a to-do list. So I think this was the main kind of drive of one of the main drives of Pedro's talk. Have a to-do list, manage it in a consistent way. There's a zillion ways of managing your to-do list of productivity systems. All of them say, yay, this is going to change your life. They all work. Some of them may work better for you than others. These are a few that I've tried. I basically use a notebook and pencil now. I found simpler is better. But yeah, just kind of, again, having a list of things that you know you need to do just makes it that little bit easier to actually start working when you do sit down at your desk to work. And the thing everyone forgets to mention, once you've got this fantastic system, it has to be somewhere where you see it. You have to remember to use it. So you get to your desk and you think, oh, I'll just check my email. What you need is some big shiny post-it note next to your monitor that says, to-do list, look at your to-do list. Yeah, so it has to be there in front of you, because otherwise, it's easy to get sidetracked by other things that are actually more fun than doing your work. I'll make a couple of suggestions about that later on in the talk. Again, this is something Pedro talked about. Write better to-dos. So, how many people's to-do lists look like this? It's like, you sit down and it's like, right, first thing on my to-do list, I've got to do research. Okay, what does that involve? Slightly better. Benchmark new compile version. Okay, I've got a compiler, I've got some benchmarks, I know what I have to do with them. Write 100 words. Pedro says write 1,000 words. I say write 10 words. Because even if you manage 100 words of your thesis, you have to do that 1,000 times and you've got a thesis. But if you manage to write 100 words, chances are you'll go on and write maybe 500 or 1,000, and you only have to do that 100 times, which is a lot less intimidating. So I deliberately underset goals with the knowledge that once I get into flow state, once I actually get into the zone, things will actually flow. I'll probably do more than I originally intended to do. So yeah, rather than having an intimidating goal of writing, I'm going to write 10,000 words today. Start off, set your goal very well. I'm going to write one sentence. And after that one sentence, a second sentence will probably occur to you if you're anything like me. And then a third and a fourth. And before you know it, you'll have written 1,000 words. But you won't have ever been facing that big wall of 1,000 words that you felt you had to climb over. So yeah, make your to-do list items bite size, achievable, something where you can say, yes, I actually did that. And don't worry about having to repeat the same to-do list item 50 times to get something done. Excuse me. So, how many times has someone recommended this fantastic productivity system which someone else said transformed their life, and it completely doesn't work? Or it works, as you were saying, it works today and it works tomorrow, and then the day after, not a chance. And after that, you've grown immune to it. Well, let me introduce you to an interesting concept. It's called the typical mind fallacy. It's the mistake of making biased and overconfident conclusions about other people's experience based on your own personal experience. Courtesy of lesswrong.com, which is a very good website to procrastinate on. Yeah, there isn't a one-size-fits-all procrastination beta. If there was, we wouldn't be having this talk right now. Yeah, there are a lot of people have put a lot of time and effort into a lot of productivity systems. One of them will work for you. And you do have to be careful not to spend your whole time just trying out new productivity systems and never actually achieving anything. But yeah, if one system doesn't work for you, find another one and try that instead. It can take a lot of searching, but you will find things that fit. It's like shopping at TK Maxx. Eventually, you'll find something that fits. Sorry. So some brain hacks that work for me, with the disclaimer that beware the typical mind fallacy. It's quite possible they won't work for you. If-then planning. This actually has it's essentially you formulate intentions to do stuff in the form of if some circumstances, then some action I will take. It sounds like new agey bollocks. It's actually got, there's a body of research of the order of 100 papers that has reliably shown this to work for a host of things involving kind of motivation and goal setting. So there's actually good science behind this. The Wikipedia page has some links back to original articles on this. There's a team at New York, I think, who've done a lot of research on this. But yeah, basically how it works is how it's believed to work is you're priming the part of your hindbrain that looks out for opportunities and threats. You're basically you're taking the effort out of making the decision to work by deciding that when a particular thing happens, it's 3 o'clock on a Monday, actually 9 o'clock on a Monday would probably be better, you've decided in advance that you're going to do work. You're actually, by simply making that decision, you're more likely to do that. Now, having put this on here, this works really well for me for a lot of things, but not for beating procrastination. I find if I need to get cash out, I can formulate something on the lines of, if I'm passing a cash machine, I'll remember I need to draw cash out, and I will. But if it's 10 o'clock, then I'm going to be at my desk working. I don't find works so well. But give it a try, see if it works. And as I say, there's some very good articles. The Wikipedia page is a very good start. So, micro rewards, my title. It's basically, there's good evidence to suggest that giving yourself little rewards for doing work is a really good way of keeping the ball rolling. But there's only so many chocolate bars you can reasonably eat in one day. So what rewards do you give yourself? Well, every time you think, I'm just going to do X, X is something your brain wants to do. So that makes a good reward. So write it down, and at an exchange rate of 15 minutes work for one procrastination, you can actually, that will get you started. That will get you over the initial hurdle of, it just takes that little bit of willpower to say, okay, well, I want to go to the toilet, I want to listen to Spotify, I want to have a cup of tea, write those down on a piece of paper, 15 minutes work, you can have Spotify. Well, actually, possibly going to the loo is it should be priority there, but you get to choose. Related to that is the just 5 minutes lie. This works very well for me. I can always fall for I'll just check my email for 5 minutes and then I'll do some work. You can turn that around and use that gullibility the other way around. It's basically, I'll just do 5 minutes work and then I can check my email. And like I was saying before with set the very low hurdle goals, I can always make myself just do 5 minutes work. And sometimes it's just 5 minutes, but sometimes it turns into 3 hours, and at the end I can look back and say, wow, I've had a really productive morning, and it was all for 5 minutes. But yeah, the key, don't set a timer. You don't want to know when the 5 minutes is up, because you might actually get into flow state in that time. You might actually get things moving, get into the zone. And this one, I was only introduced to it recently, and it is awesome. Most modern systems, you can set passwords that are complete sentences. So if you've got something that you need to remember to do, set it as your university password. You're going to have to type, if you're like me, you religiously lock your screen every time you leave your computer, you're going to have to type that a dozen times a day. There's no way you're going to forget to work on your thesis if your password is write your ... king thesis! Exclamation mark. Yeah, and it's a pretty secure password as well, and easy to remember. So, or it was until I showed it to you lot. Yeah, I did actually, I picked something here which is not valid for the university system, so you can't actually set your password to that. But you can come up with your own variations. And yeah, I found that's actually really effective for, much better than a post-it note attached to my monitor, which I can ignore. Having to type that half a dozen times a day reminds me that goal is there looming over me and needs to be worked on. So yeah, that's here's some links to some basically places where I've harvested ideas from and kind of things that I found work for me. Yeah, I will give these slides to you afterwards, and you can put them up online. But yeah, I think that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Any questions? So,
This is a quick question. Have you tried these tools, or have you tried yourself?
Yes. So I say I manage my to-do list on pen and paper. I actually use a variant of Mark Forster's autofocus system to do that.
What's special about it?
I think the thing I really like about it is, unlike any other to-do list management system I've seen, it has a system for removing stupid things that you've put on your to-do list that are going to sit there forever and never get done. So it's basically, I won't go into the gory details, but you essentially have a system whereby you can expire to-dos. So, you know, I mean, at some point, in a moment of frustration with the terrible state of most desktop operating systems, I put write an OS on my to-do list, and I'm never going to do that. It's not on my to-do list anymore. Autofocus has a really nice way, a really kind of slick way of getting things off your to-do list if you're never going to complete them, which means that you don't end up with like 40 items that you're never going to do on your to-do list, mixed up with the things that are actually really important. Getting things done I used for a while, and kind of related to that is to-do text, which is a set of scripts and tools for managing a to-do list in a text file. Actually, I prefer paper these days, but there are still some really good ideas in Dave Allen's Getting Things Done about how to manage your to-do list, and you know, how to word your to-dos so that you're more likely to do them, knowing what your next action has to be for any given task, that sort of thing. Micro movements is where the idea of setting really, really small goals to kickstart yourself. That's where that comes from, although I use it in a slightly different way. And Zen to Done is about essentially being more minimalist and you know, making things simpler for yourself. So yeah, they're all places I've flagrantly plagiarised ideas from, basically.
okay, thank you, Glyn.
Right. Unlike Pedro and Glyn, none of this is original content. This is all entirely plagiarised from a couple of articles by a guy called Tim Urban. I don't know what else he's done, but I just found these articles online and they're very good. And I've recommended them to a few people, and they've all said that they feel like the article was written for them and it speaks to them. It certainly spoke to me, and it's kind of helped me. I'm a terrible procrastinator. I procrastinated writing these slides. That's why I was late. I'm not a good example of someone who is very productive. But at least now I'm aware of why I procrastinate and what I can do about it. So this is going to be in two parts. First part is sort of like why you procrastinate in the first place, and then what you can do about it. And I'll link to the original articles at the end. But it's wonderful analogies. All of the images are ripped off from the article. I haven't drawn any of this. None of these are my own ideas. So, firstly, to understand why we procrastinate, we first need to look at the non-procrastinator's brain. And inside the non-procrastinator's brain, you have a rational decision maker. And that decision maker makes long-term plans, and they are not a child. And that's fine. Like, there are plenty of people out there who don't suffer with procrastination, and that's what it looks like inside their head. Unfortunately, for most of us, and people that are in this room probably because they suffer from procrastination, they have a similar situation. But the rational decision maker, even though he's the same as in other people's brains, he has this unfortunate pet called the instant gratification monkey. And that would be fine, and maybe even cute, except for the fact he has no idea how to look after this pet. And the instant gratification monkey likes to completely derail things. So you can see here the rational decision maker is trying to take the wheel of the ship and steer you in the right direction and get you to do your work.
and the monkey wants you to do anything other than that. And so, as we'll see, the monkey takes control. So here's a typical example. You sit down at work, you think, great, I'll do some work now. I'm all ready, sat in front of my computer, got a cup of tea. And then the monkey comes along and says, no, we're not going to do that, because the monkey just wants to do fun things. So instead, the monkey suggests watching a whole bunch of unrelated YouTube videos, which have nothing to do with what you want to do regarding your work. And he starts to take the wheel of the ship. And he starts to steer you off course. And the rational decision maker doesn't really know what to do about this. He doesn't know how to tell the monkey no. And so the monkey begins to take the wheel. And then it tries to persuade you to then, after watching these useless YouTube videos, to then do other pointless stuff, like reorganising your to-do list, which is my personal favourite. I do that one all the time. Checking sock prices on Amazon, that's another classic. Splitting your photo albums down into more and more specific albums. You know, the list goes on, and I'm sure you can think of plenty of other things you do. You know, like classic ones are going on Facebook and stuff. But I like these much more specific ones, like looking up sock prices on Amazon. And then, you know, then it gets to 2 o'clock, and you've got a meeting or a seminar at 4:30, and there's not enough time to do any work really. So you might as well just procrastinate a little bit more and waste like the rest of that time. And by this point, the instant gratification monkey is fully taking control of the ship and is steering you off course. So hopefully you guys can relate to that. That's basically a very nice analogy of how procrastination works. And I'm sure you've all got a horrible little instant gratification monkey inside your minds that causes you to procrastinate. Okay, so the problem is that the monkey is the last creature that should be in charge of your decisions. Because he only cares about the present. He only cares about having fun now. He doesn't care about what's going to happen in future, about your career plans, about your PhD. He doesn't care about the fact that you procrastinated loads in the past and didn't meet a deadline. And he just wants to be entirely hedonistic and enjoy the moment and have fun now. Really, really doesn't care about your future. And he doesn't understand the rational decision maker. Like, why would we carry on jogging when we could just stop? You know, jogging is not that fun unless you really get into it. But like, it's tiring. Like, why not just stop? We could do something fun instead. We could just like go and play on the beach. Like, why bothering to practice the guitar when it's frustrating and you're not getting it right? Like, your rational decision maker in your mind would think, well, one day I want to be able to play this particular song on the guitar, so I need to work at it and I'll work through the difficulty and frustration of learning a particular song. And the monkey doesn't care about that. The monkey wants to do fun things. He wants to go on the internet and watch YouTube videos. And again, like the computers are the worst because your computer is immediately linked to the internet, which is the most fun thing in the world. And so that's the real issue, especially because we have computer-based jobs. It's really, really difficult to stop the monkey in your mind trying to trick you into just playing with the internet instead of using a computer for work. So yeah, he ignores the rational decision maker, which is the main issue here. And so what happens is you end up in the dark playground, which is anywhere where this kind of like guilty leisure time happens. So things like refreshing your phone email again and again. The one that I do really badly is I get an email on my phone and I look at my phone and then I go, oh, now I'm on my phone, I'll look at Reddit, and then I spend 15 minutes on Reddit. And it's awful, like you context switch and you end up in the dark playground like this. Or maybe you have a depressing nap, or you just throw a ball and catch it because that's more fun than doing work right. And it's this situation where you have fun, but it's not really fun because you didn't earn it. You're just having fun and you still have a paper to write, or you have like this deadline and your PhD is due, and you haven't earned any of this fun. You're doing it with the knowledge that you still need to do that piece of work. And the instant gratification monkey is constantly trying to derail you and keep you in the dark playground because he just wants to have fun in the moment and ignores all of your long-term goals. So given that this is a problem, how do procrastinators ever get stuff done? Because we still get stuff done, like eventually. We end up meeting deadlines, but it's not really pleasant. And the only way it tends to happen is that the panic monster comes along when there's a really scary deadline. So, for instance, your first deadline usually in the PhD is the literature review seminar, and you probably leave it to the last minute. I know I think I stayed up the night before and just stayed up all night and wrote my slides and gave my talk sleep deprived, and that was only because the panic monster turned up at like 8 PM the night before. Before then I was in the dark playground watching YouTube videos. And so the thing is, the panic monster is dormant most of the time, and he only appears when you've got a big deadline, or there's some kind of fear of public embarrassment, or any other kind of like career failure or scary consequence. And it's the only thing that the instant gratification monkey is afraid of. So the deadline comes along, and you're happy watching YouTube videos because the monkey told you to, and then the panic monster scares him away, and he goes and runs up a tree, and you take back over, and you take control of the ship, maybe for like the next 12 hours while you stay up all night, like in a caffeine-fueled state, desperately trying to like finish a paper. And this kind of explains why you can spend like 2 weeks of your life knowing that you have a deadline coming, only to write like the first sentence of a paper, and then right at the end you suddenly manage to pull it out of your ass like in a few hours. And it's because the panic monster turns up and scares away the instant gratification monkey. And that's fine, that's how we exist, right? Like, that's how I exist. My life has been a series of situations where I procrastinate, followed by the panic monster turning up, and then I do everything at the last minute, and then I feel bad about myself, but it gets done eventually and I'm still here, so. But really, this is no way to live. We should not, we should endeavour not to be like this, because it's not fun, it's not fun. You spend most of your time in the dark playground having guilty fun, because you know that you can't really enjoy it because you've got stuff to do, or that you'll eventually sell yourself short and you'll hate yourself. So actually, it would be better if you could spend your time having like guilt-free leisure time where you actually earned it, if you actually do work, instead of procrastinating. And panic is never fun either. Like, I hate like pulling all-nighters, and I'm getting too old for it now. And again, like, the procrastinator will ultimately sell themselves short. Like, I know I feel guilty of this. I know I can do better, and if I didn't waste all my time procrastinating, I could produce better work. And it builds up over time, especially like with PhDs and things. It can really like eat away at you. And the third thing is that you will get the stuff that absolutely must be done, but you won't do the things that you want to do. Like maybe you want to learn to play the guitar, but that will never be a pressing thing where the panic monster turns up, because there's no immediate threat to like your public embarrassment, or like there's no going to be career failure there, unless you're a professional guitarist or something, or if you've got some concert that you need to play for. Unless there's some reason why the panic monster would show up, the instant gratification monkey will constantly take over and derail everything. So you can exist as a procrastinator in this state, but it's not a very nice way to live. So that's basically why you procrastinate. This is a brief tip on kind of like how to beat it, which Pedro and Glyn have already covered. But it's just two components, planning and doing, which sound really, really simple, but it really is as simple as that. The trouble is that when procrastinators plan, they plan really, really badly. And we love planning because it makes us feel like we're achieving something, but we're not actually achieving anything. And we tend to make vague lists like this, like, oh, learn how to code. Yeah, good luck with that one. And you end up with a long list of tasks which are all very vague and very difficult to think about how you might start accomplishing them. And your instant gratification monkey's just sat there thinking, oh, this is great. He's made all these vague targets that he'll have absolutely no clue about how to get started on. So he knows that he can distract you, like going on Facebook and things, because you'll never actually sit down and do these things. So some of the stuff that like Pedro and Glyn talked about, making these more specific, is the kind of thing that will help you. So this is one thing that I do, and I think this is really key, is you take your big to-do list of things, you prioritise them, and you pick one as the most important thing that you're going to do next. You're going to have some urgent items that have to get done, and you need to get those out of the way as soon as possible so you can actually get on with something important. But the key problem that procrastinators have is that they take unimportant tasks and try to do those first, because it makes them feel like they achieved something. But then you use those unimportant tasks to put off something important forever. And I'll do stuff like this, like I justify my procrastination by doing work-related procrastination, where I say, oh, I'll reply to all my emails before I get started on this report, because it's easy, and I can do each one of them in maybe like 5 minutes at a time, and it makes me feel like I've achieved something. And then it gets to the end of the day, and I go, oh, I didn't even start working on that paper. And then I hate myself, and then it gets to the next day, and I go, I've got loads more emails again, I need to really get through these before I can start working on that paper. And then I kind of, like, at the end of the day, I feel like I accomplished something, because at least it was work-related, but it wasn't the most important thing that I should have been doing. So it's really key to have this list, but make sure that you're picking the most important thing as the thing that you're going to do next. And another key point is this, like, not making icky items, which are things that, like Pedro and Glyn talked about, things that are vague. You don't want anything that's vague and murky, where you wouldn't have any clue where to start. You need to make specific targets so that it makes it easier for you to make a start on things. So one classic one is learn how to code. It's incredibly vague, and you have no real idea how you go about doing that. And you put it on your to-do list and you think, yeah, I'll start that today. And no idea where to start. So if you can break it down into some simple steps like this, then you've got 4 different tasks which are achievable, and you can apply other concepts like smart targets and things to this kind of thing to make them stuff that you know you can really tick off. So this is the plan. You've got your big list, you've unikified everything so it's all specific, and then you've picked one that is the most important thing that you're going to do now, and now you have to start doing something. And this is what doing looks like. Every time you do a task, this is the process. So this is the dark playground where you watch YouTube videos and go on Facebook. And this is the critical entrance, which is where you start doing the work. That's why you actually sit down at your computer and you say, I'm going to actually start writing this paper now. And you have to go all the way through the dark woods, which is an unpleasant journey. But it leads you all the way to the happy playground, which is where you can have happy, earned, satisfying leisure time. And if you're really, really lucky and you get absorbed in your work, you enter this state of flow, which Glyn briefly touched on, where you kind of shoot off and you lose track of time and you love doing your work and you end up in the happy playground anyway. And so this is one example. This is like the ideal path. You start in the dark playground, but you very quickly enter the critical entrance. And then you make it all the way through the dark woods until you get into the happy playground. Maybe you end up in a state of flow, and that's great. That's what it looks like for people who don't procrastinate. Unfortunately, if you're a procrastinator, it probably looks more like this. You start in the dark playground, watching YouTube videos. You maybe get a little bit closer to the critical entrance. You're like, oh, I'll think about starting this. And then you go, oh no, actually, I'll just, sit and watch cat videos all day. And you end up in the dark playground, you never actually get the task done. Maybe if you're lucky, you end up getting through the critical entrance, but then you get distracted for long periods of time, you get back on track, but then you get distracted again, and you still ultimately never end up finishing the task. Or, this is typically what happens to me, you end up mucking around for ages and ages and ages in the dark woods, not getting anything done, procrastinating. The panic monster shows up because the deadline is so close, and you end up spending the entire night staying up, working, and you finally make it out of the dark woods, but you don't make it to the happy playground. You end up in Mixed Feelings Park, where you got the work done, but it wasn't your best work, and you feel kind of bad about yourself anyway, and then you just full with regret because you think, oh God, if I hadn't procrastinated so much, I would have done a better job, and you could have perhaps landed it in the happy playground. And that's horrible, and that happens to me all the time, and that's why I hate myself for procrastinating. So don't end up like that. But there is hope. It's really, really down to this key moment of trying to get through the critical entrance, and that's where the instant gratification monkey tries to fight you the most. It's where you have to just really sit down and try and clear away all distractions, close off the internet and everything. And as long as you can get 5 minutes of work done and really get through that and start on your path through the dark woods, you can actually start to get some work done. And remember, like, the monkey hates stopping to do fun things. Who wants to watch like YouTube videos all day? So if you can just push him through this kind of breaks his will a little bit, and then it's easier to continue on through and finish your task. And he'll put up a fight all the way through the dark woods. And remember, like, the dark woods is an unpleasant place as well, because you're working and working isn't fun. But also the dark playground isn't fun either, because it's tainted fun. So really, you need to kind of like push through it for the sake of you both. But the good thing is that once you kind of get far enough into the dark woods, you get some self-esteem back. You think, oh, I'm like actually doing something productive, I feel good about myself, and this starts to distract your monkey a little bit, and he'll put up less resistance. And if you can carry on doing this, you get this kind of like positive feedback mechanism where you start to feel good about yourself, you start making progress. But it's really about getting through that critical entrance in the first place. And eventually you reach a tipping point where you've made enough progress that you're kind of past the dark playground and the end is in sight, and you're actually getting quite excited about finally finishing it and not really thinking about getting distracted. And the monkey doesn't care about like whether you're having fun in the dark playground or in the happy playground. He just wants to have fun. So once you get past that tipping point, you can actually like kind of accelerate towards the end, and you might end up in like a state of flow where you both enjoy doing the work and it's fine. And you speed together towards the finish, and you end up having some guilt-free leisure time with your instant gratification monkey. And that's great, and that's fine, but that's only one task. The problem is that the monkey has a very short-term memory, and this will happen again tomorrow. And you have to do it again and again. But if you start to prove to yourself that you can do it once and do it twice, and eventually like you can kind of like recall these successful experiences of actually fighting procrastination and getting better at it, and every time it gets easier. And like I know, like if you go on holiday or something and you break your momentum, you end up having to fight this really hard again. But if you can keep it up like over the week or over the course of the day, like every task that you do, it becomes easier and easier to fight your instant gratification monkey and kind of get through procrastination. And so yeah, that's basically it. That's a very quick summary though. Like, I would really recommend that you read these articles in depth because they have a whole load of other extra anecdotes, and it's very good and very interesting, and there's more detail at the end on kind of like ways that you can actually fight procrastination. But I think everyone should know about these articles because I think the analogies are brilliant. But yeah, that's it. Any questions?
Thanks, Alan. That was great. Has anyone got any questions?
Yeah, I found that my cell phone is the main cause of my procrastination. After I arrive at the department, I will check about the update on the Facebook or Instagram, and every 10 or 15 minutes I will check again. So do you have any way to solve this problem?
So my phone will have like a little flashing light when I've got a notification. So even if I put it on like do not disturb mode, where it doesn't vibrate or doesn't ring, I can still see it flashing. So if I have it on the desk next to me, it still distracts me. So I have to put it on like do not disturb and put it in my pocket and not look at it, because like if there's any kind of distraction, it will immediately make me context switch, and I'll look at my phone and then it goes, oh look, it's okay because I'm not really looking at Facebook on my computer, so it goes, it's okay, right? Like I've got email here, and I've got Reddit, and I've got Facebook, and I've got WhatsApp, and I'm maybe on Twitter, and oh yeah, I could go on Spotify and look up some music, and then before I know it, I've wasted half an hour. And yeah, like if you can just put your phone away, like physically put it away, don't even have it on the desk, because then you're not even tempted to like unlock it and look at it. If you can just put it away in your pocket and have it on like do not disturb for at least the time it takes you to get through that critical entrance, then you can really kind of get started on work and hopefully make some progress.
Okay, thank you.
On that point, I've got a friend who puts her phone in the freezer, and then she's only allowed to look at it when she goes to make a cup of tea. So she goes to make a cup of tea, and she looks at her phone, checks everything, puts it back in the freezer, and then goes back to her office to work. That's all.
The,
Wouldn't
the,
recommend it's good for the electronics.
the other solution is don't have a smartphone. That works for me. I have a dumb phone which does not go online.
Okay, any other questions for Alan? Can we thank Alan and Glyn and Pedro?